Man, it's been wild. Okay. The economy, 2025. I mean, no question. It's been a crazy year. It has. I mean, 2025, plenty of ups and downs, markets just wickedly wild. November,
A little
a
shaky.
rough and shaky month. Holiday season, here we are. And we're like 4 weeks, 3 weeks away from wrapping this year up. And so yeah, man, I'm sure like investors and people that watch our show, they're just like, hey, what the heck?
Yeah.
Economy 2025. Is there any indication into 26? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, if you look this, I mean, first of all, this year has gone by so fast, and if you just look at the path we've taken this year, we started the year off pretty solid, the first 2 months, and then all of a sudden, the new word of the year, tariffs, came about, and the ups and downs of whether we're going to tariff or increase the tariffs on China, not China, well, China, Canada,
Everybody.
Mexico, everybody, and then the market just kind of just tanked, basically in April. But then, since then, it's been on a tear. People were worried about the economy. Are we going into a recession or depression or somewhere in between? And the market just kept ripping. We saw, $1 trillion companies after $1 trillion companies. I guess the latest one was Eli Lilly the other day. But like you said, November kind of brought back the
Bumpy.
reality that, as things go up, they can go down as well. And we saw some volatility.
But see, that's coming off of the government shutdown,
Right.
uncertainty on the job situation. We knew we had one of the worst layoff months in like 20 plus years. And then we get, the job report, which
Seemed pretty
seemed
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just, news after news. And then of course, you're right here getting ready to embark on a election year, and so I think it's going to be, once again, it's going to be an interesting 2026 too. I'm sure we're going to be right here at the end of 26 thinking, my goodness, what a wild, wicked year. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you just try to navigate it, all the ups and downs. You try to get an understanding of where we're headed. And it has, the markets have done, what they've done so far. And these companies, man, you think of like just the overall impact of AI, and you look at NVIDIA. I mean, they just posted their earnings not too long ago, and once again above expectation. Yeah, but then their stock falls a bit after that, and it's like, I wonder how many people just think it's like this can't be real. Like, come on. Yeah, at some point it's like I don't know. Maybe they're just taking earnings off the top. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, no, who knows, right? They're the new hardware for the software, but
And it's like a big
yeah,
guessing game.
it's a big guessing game, and this is why when you're looking at investing, especially if you have a long term view in front of you, then these reports or these news headlines, they're important, but they shouldn't delay your ability or um, your involvement in getting into the market and start to invest for your future. Because if it's not Nvidia, if it's not Eli Lilly, if it's not Microsoft, if it's some other company,
Right.
right? It's going to be some other news. If it's not tariffs, then it's inflation, then it's you know rising unemployment. There's always going to be something that can deter you or make you want to take a step back and not take the leap of investing. But you can't. You've got to think about not just today. You've got to think about your life in the future. And
Hmm.
we've talked about this in our past shows. Like the decision that you make today will really impact your life down the road.
Yeah, and right, you can't be held back by fear. You can't be crippled by fear and just not do anything or be nervous. I worry about the younger generation. Obviously, I got three boys growing up, and the really this message to young men is, it seems to be an uphill battle. Especially if they're watching the news and they're on social media and they're on X, because they're hearing it. They're hearing a lot of the fight in the arguments that are between political parties and just out there in the world. The idea that is schooling good? Now you got these big, commentators coming out saying, hey, college is a waste of time. And then, then you got some people that are pushing them to go to college. And then there's a massive debt challenge that they're going to face if they do, so I feel bad for them. But I think in some sense, it's like, hey, you got to put some of this fear behind. You got to think clear, think practical. I think one of the biggest fears right now, too, that hold people back from just doing the basic is, the uncertainty about their job role in the future with AI. And I was listening to actually another podcast show, and a gentleman, and I think he brought up a good point. You go back to like the .com era, okay, early 2000s, and obviously we hit a bubble with .com, Listen to me, we hit a bubble at that time, but there was a lot of uncertainty around the internet. And of course, I was a younger man at the time, but I wasn't in the business world. And I kind of wonder, what was the thought process? Was there concerns about people losing their jobs because of this, the computer and the internet and the ability for it to streamline things? And then you look back, now in arrears, a few decades removed, and you see jobs and careers that never existed, never would have even thought they would have existed without it,
Right.
I mean, think about all the online marketing roles, all the, social media platforms and podcast
Podcasting. Yeah.
shows, and all the things that now exist because of technology that we just couldn't see at the time. We were afraid and nervous. And so I think there is some concerns about how AI is going to impact the everyday individual and their job specifically. But then also, if you're out there and kind of, if you can put that aside and just think optimistic about the future in regards to what AI can do, and what opportunity you might have as a result of it. So, I don't know. It's a very interesting season of life, just with the massive change, which, for me, I think is a good shakeup in many ways that can help. We can embrace the future if you choose to embrace it.
Yeah, you've got to be the early adopter of AI, in some aspects. I mean, if you think about I, I feel like this relates, but if you think about Blockbuster and Netflix,
Right.
right? I think Blockbuster, if I remember correctly, basically didn't embrace this new layout. This where people were, you know, pe- I romanticize. I think you do too.
Did you say romanticize?
Yeah,
Is that a word?
yeah, it's a word.
Romanticize.
Yeah, romanticize.
I like that.
Going to the video store.
But I've never romanticized about a video store, though. I'm not speaking that.
No, I think you've told me this, that because I know for a fact I did this.
Yeah.
Friday nights, going to the video store with my sister and my mom and picking out 2 or 3 movies we're gonna watch. This is long. This is old. This is VHS times, and it was fun. We really looked forward to that. And Netflix kind of had an idea of, well, people would rather just get things in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think Blockbuster just did not adapt to this new phenomenon that was happening.
Oh, and then Redbox.
And then remember that, right? And then they're probably gone
Before
now,
you get
too.
in the mail, it's like, we just are going to get rid of the people, and you come,
You just go, and just go pick up your DVDs there.
I mean, I remember back in the day, you could call. I remember being able to call Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And if you knew the person, it was like, hey, can you hold that
Oh,
video
yeah.
before I get there?
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'll be there soon,
Yep.
Of course, there was no way to call in between because you didn't have no cell phone.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing, right? But then, Netflix decided to move forward, and even Kodak, right? Kodak, they were very, very anti-digital camera, anti-digital. Like people would want prints, right? People would want the I forget what you call those Polaroids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did not adopt early technology, and now. I mean, when was the last time you printed out photos and actually used a point-and-shoot camera versus a digital camera or just your iPhone? So yeah, you can have fears, but you really have to, I believe, embrace the technology that's in front of you. It's kind of like going back to when people say the stock market. I think S&P is at just shy of 7,000. Oh, it's going to go back to 5. No, it's not. It's not. Like, you have to embrace the world that we're in right now.
Right.
And so, kind of going in today's conversation about delaying, right? You can't delay technology, and really, you can't delay saving for your retirement because it has a long compounding impact on one's ability to one, retire, and two, retire successfully and
Hmm.
comfortably. The longer you wait and the longer you delay in saving, even a little bit, right? But the longer you delay saving for retirement, it's the difference between whether you can or whether you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's significant. And you're right, whether it's delaying your investment goals within your retirement accounts that your employer offers, or, addressing liabilities, even making decisions on real estate or having a family. It really delaying it because of the uncertainty of the markets or uncertainty of, whatever it may be. Like, it's just, you got to get that out, and you just got to get the disciplines in place. The fundamentals have to be there. Yeah, I mean, of course, we've looked at it, but you go back, and I even kick my own self for this, right? You go back to, like, run these scenarios where, if I was started funding my 401k or funding a Roth at age 20, and you compound that at 7, 8, 9% simple interest year over year, by age like 55 or 60, you can forget it, right? You got so much money, it's a done deal,
All
right?
right.
Um, and we've always said you can't. The reality is you can't have you got to have time to create wealth, or you got to have a lot of cash flow. Okay. But if you don't have time, it takes a lot of cash flow. And if you do have time, it doesn't take that much cash flow, right? And so really the biggest value add to creating wealth when it comes to market-based investments, whether it's, buying stock in a brokerage account or investing in a Roth or investing in a retirement account, time is your best friend. And of course, the earlier you can start, it's the best. And that's a challenge for younger, Americans that are out there trying to start a family and try to purchase a home, when the average price of a new home buyer, like, it's
It's insane.
crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah. But I mean, there's actually some good news on that front. Hopefully, it stays this way. But I think even Atlanta has seen. I want to see they saw a drop of like 1.7, 1.8% in housing pricing.
That's good.
Interest rates coming down a little bit more. So, maybe there's some momentum we see happening. We just got to see the housing market's got to, these prices got to come down, and they are in certain
They
areas.
are in certain areas. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they are.
yeah.
They are. Yeah, it's becoming an affordability issue. But going back to delay, the cost of delaying. All right. I remember when I bought my house, 2020. All right, my interest rate is 2.75%. Right. So if I were to delay it to now 2025, well, interest rates are double that, and my house price, but the price of my home has doubled since then. Right. So now you ask yourself, could that be something that you can afford right now? And the reason why maybe you can't is because you delayed.
Yeah.
So there are some ramifications, sometimes short term, like a 5-year window, or long term, if you think about a 30-year career of delaying, just putting some money away for your future self. Like you mentioned, you either have time or cash flow, but cash flow can't make up really for that time you've lost.
It
Right?
takes a lot.
It takes a lot of
Right.
cash flow to make up for even 5 years of delaying for your retirement. And so I'd say the one thing that delaying your retirement costs you is that compounding ability for those first dollars, like you said, when you're 20 years old, those dollars compounding over now you're 38,
I'm almost 40.
almost 40. There
Yeah,
you
my
go.
last year.
I mean, last year. I mean, imagine that. Imagine $50 20 years ago. What that
Think
$50 a
small.
month compounding over this time.
Yeah,
That would be
you're
huge.
gonna make me depressed now.
No, no,
Wait, you
no,
said
no. I did the
no,
same
no.
thing.
I think no.
I did
I
the
mean,
same thing. I
it
mean,
is so right.
at
And
20, I was
like,
buying sneakers and buying jeans and stuff like that. It should have been
so like, you're starting 2026, and I'm a big, like, let's start the year right, get a plan in place, and whether you're someone who is embarking on retirement, or you're someone who is younger trying to figure out how you're gonna maybe try to work toward buying a home, the whole start now concept and don't delay, it really, once again, it goes back to just fundamentals. Like, as an example, let's say, you're 25 years old, married, and maybe a kid on the way, and you guys are still living in an apartment, but you're making a good living. You're trying to figure out want to buy a house, etc. Okay, you can go ahead and mimic what that lifestyle looks like and then create the discipline today, meaning that, okay, you don't have a mortgage. You, at the moment, you probably don't have to worry about lawn care, which means you may not have a lawnmower. You don't have to worry about maybe a lot of things that you will when you buy a house. So instead of delaying that picture to say, I'll just deal with it when I get there, go ahead and build out what that picture looks like financially and commit to the disciplines of it now. So act like you have a mortgage, act like you need to go purchase some things to prepare for the property. And I think those fundamentals matter. Let's say you're like, well, hey, I don't have a career yet. I don't have that 401k. So I'll just have to wait and start investing then.
No, you
Absolutely
don't.
not.
Not at all.
Build the fundamentals. You should be saving 15% of your gross income toward your future well-being, financial well-being. So, if you're making 20 grand, you need to save 15% of that. If you're making, 700,000 and you're later in your career and you're knocking it down, some of the most highest income you ever make in your life, you need to be saving 15 to 20%. There's no reason not to, right? And so no matter your situation, you can really mimic the life that you want and begin to try to build those disciplines in. I really like it too when we're talking about this whole concept with retirement. We have a lot of clients, they've done super well. They've got several $1 million worth of liquidity. Most of them are debt free. But one of the biggest disconnects is I want to transition to retirement and I'm probably going to spend X. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, your outflow in retirement's going to be here, but you're making this, which means simple math. You should be able to either say, where's this going today, right? And just to your point, I love the practice of forcing yourself to adapt, to the life you say you want or will have, and try to do that and build that discipline in now, not deferring, not waiting. Take advantage of it, because just like you would be losing maybe on a 401k and a free contribution from your employer, you also could be losing on massive amounts of extra cash flow by taking advantage of your income, because you're going to a different place in retirement financially,
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about earlier, news headlines that might block you from investing or starting your retirement. Lifestyle creep could be another thing that stops you from saving for your retirement as well. Like you mentioned, oh, if, when I plan to retire, I'm going to live off of this, but currently I'm living off this, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Unfortunately, as we make more money, our lifestyle tends to just creep up with that, right? Yeah. And for good or bad, depending if you have the disciplines in place, if you're not disciplined ahead of time, then you're always going to be pushing back, or you're never going to see the opportunity to invest, because all of a sudden, if you didn't build the discipline, like you mentioned before about the couple who lives in a rental, one kid, and should be planning as if they do have a house or if they do have those housing expenses. Well, if they don't build that discipline, then when they move into that house, when they do have the lawn care, when they do have two kids now instead of one, and they do have the mortgage, and they do have two cars, all of a sudden it's like all these expenses start to come in. They haven't built the rhythms, they haven't built the disciplines, and they push it off even further. So it's one that, again, it's the headlines that can detract you, but it's also not having the disciplines to stay within the confines of your income and stay way below that, so you can have the ability to save, so you can have the ability to say yes to the lifestyle that you want down the road.
So this lifestyle creep, it kind of ties to a conversation I was having with Ben, who's my middle son. We were driving. It was Saturday. We were headed to go watch Drew play basketball, and he's got a really close friend whose father has done super well for himself, and so he was asking me some financial questions about.
Ben was?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was asking because he had, he's really close to his friend, and so he's talked to the dad, and I guess has asked a lot of questions to the dad about financial, his not financial, personal financial status, but just like how did you do what you do? How did you get to where you are, type of thing. And so anyway, his dad made the statement, I committed years ago to basically a specific amount of money that was needed to cover my lifestyle, and everything above would just be excess, but my lifestyle would be basically controlled within these confines, and then at that point maybe adjusted for inflation or whatever. Okay, Ben didn't say that, but my point. So anyway, we were talking about that, and it kind of posed a good question, and that was, well, obviously when we say lifestyle, I mean, he's, maybe got a nicer house, now has a vacation home, now has nicer vehicles. So from the outside looking in, at lifestyle seems to have gotten more. But if he's controlled it to here, then how did that happen? And so, we were just talking about it, and I said, what I think in those types of situations, the reason people are so successful is because increasing lifestyle, sometimes we get that confused. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and we increase the life we want to live, but because we get ahead of ourselves, it increases the amount of money we need to live the life we want to live. So like as an example, let's say I live in a $200,000 home, first home I've ever purchased, okay? Now, that doesn't mean I don't want to get a bigger house later, and I can't because I've controlled my lifestyle to here. What it means is that if I do want to sell my home and eventually buy a home that's maybe priced at $500,000, then instead of just jumping the gun and doing it next year and then financing the difference, increasing the demand that I have now for cash flow, I'm patient and I begin to save and I begin to wait for the right time of the market to sell. And because of that combination, eventually I get into this nicer home, but my cost hadn't changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so and you can really apply that to anything. I want to have a nicer car. Well, great. You can get a nicer car. That's an increase in lifestyle, if you will, but not increasing cash flow demand. And so I think to his point, when he was talking to my son, he's like, look, I agreed that I needed to make this to be able to live off of. And so even though he has nicer things, it didn't affect the amount of money he needed on a monthly basis from the creation of cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm
like
like,
that.
that's another incredible way of increasing your lifestyle while also being obedient to the disciplines that you need to have in place to create wealth. And,
love that.
And it worked for him. I thought it was interesting.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I think when people hear keeping up with increasing my lifestyle, they think about increasing their expenses, right? Increasing
Right.
their outflow to maintain that lifestyle. But yeah, if you can still do the things that you want, but stay, like you said, disciplined within the budget. I know people hate that word, right? But the budget is whatever you want it to be, right? If your budget's 10 grand versus somebody whose budget is 5 grand, right? I mean, the budget is just a way to be disciplined with your cash flow. But if you can stick within those confines, then yeah, I mean, the lifestyle that you want may not require the type of money that you think.
Right.
And kind of going back to the compounding impact, right? I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure it's pretty low. If you started saving at 20 years old, and you retired at 65, the amount that you need to save over that 45-year time frame to get $1 million, let's say, is much lower than someone who saved at 40
Right.
and needs 25 years for that money to compound, right? Same $1 million at the end of the day, but the amount of money that it takes
The
to
amount of
get
cash flow,
the amount
yeah.
of cash flow it takes to get that $1 million is completely different.
No, it's just having those disciplines in place. It really is what it boils down to. And there's so many different areas of your life that you need to have it. And the one thing I think is like a golden rule for me, and I think this is probably, I don't know, I think this probably applies to everybody because we all do it from time to time, is anytime you're making a financial decision and purchasing something, a house, a car, a vacation property, whatever, if your natural default is to go back and look at your monthly income and monthly expenditures to justify that purchase, you're making a foolish mistake. Let me say that again. If you are considering buying a car and you walk into the dealership, and while you're in the dealership, what is their focus? The focus of the sales representative is to consistently talk to you about how much you can afford on a monthly basis. And then you start thinking, how much can I afford on a monthly basis? Okay, if you are making a decision, a financial decision relative to how much you can afford on a monthly basis, and that decision is not something you have to have today, a vehicle, a house, a vacation property, whatever it may be, you are making, your approach is flawed. 100%. 100%.
Dig deeper into that.
Well, I mean, and this is one of my frustrations. I think it's just a sales tactic. Everybody that is selling you a product, and unfortunately, in today's world, you can finance everything, right? I mean, you can finance your Taco Bell order on what, oh my
You probably could.
No, you
DoorDash,
can.
I'm sure you probably could.
On the app, it says make payments over 3. I'm like, it was like, a special sack of tacos for $12. What are we talking about? I got to finance it. Come on. No, but in all honesty,
No, you're right.
Why does that exist? But when you go and make purchases, it doesn't, and literally it doesn't matter. The auto industry, I was just picking. I got friends in the auto industry. Just but their approach, and they got to make a living too. But their approach in their sales tactic is to get you to hyper focus on a monthly amount. Well, of course, they know they have the controls, right? They can control in some sense the variation of rate. They can control the tenure or how long you're going to be financing. There's a lot of other moving parts within a deal that they probably have leverage and movement on. So their focus is to get you to hyper focus on a number, because once you say yes, then they'll work everything else out, but maybe not always to your benefit because they don't know your plan, and get you back to that number and you make the decision. The monthly number is not the way to approach strong financial decisions at all. It's a broken method, 100%. And so, yeah, I think we have to be more conscious of how we handle. A matter of fact, I think we have to be more conscious of how we are spending and handling our money today than we ever have to be. And the problem is a lot of those little decisions, I can afford this, I can afford this. It affects, it's a lifestyle creep, and then it delays our ability to invest. Well, I'll get to it. Or maybe I can reduce my contribution by a little bit and increase what I can afford so I can get this vehicle. It completely wrecks your financial future. The cost of those types of decisions are monumental when you look at the loss of compound interest.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would challenge, I love what you just said, and I would challenge anyone who is to really crunch the numbers before you make that decision. Crunch the numbers and quantify. Don't just say, oh, maybe I'll push it to next year, or yeah, I can justify that, whatever, $800. I mean, I think the average car purchase now, car monthly payment now is like close to $1,000 a month, right? If you can actually quantify how much you're actually losing, or how much you're actually wasting, or how much you're actually costing yourself, and put a dollar amount to it before you make that purchase. And if you're okay with that cost, then by all means make that decision, right? You at least came out with an approach. But I think a lot of people, if they really were to sit back down, take a deep breath, right, and actually put a pen to pad and quantify that financial decision, not just for today, but over a course of 20, 30 years.
Oh, cost.
Oh my gosh,
significant.
Yeah, I mean, we talked briefly the other day about the new. It hasn't been put in place, right? But this new idea floating around about a 50-year mortgage. Right. I mean, if you actually were to quantify like what that actually means, because you said just now, people are trying to figure out ways to just get things inside of their, inside of their budget, right? But housing crisis where we're in right now, house affordability, not really a crisis, but the affordability is pretty tough right now. Well, if I can't afford a 30-year mortgage or get inside the house for 30 years, well, if I can sneak in the back door with a 50-year mortgage, then I'm in, right? It fits inside my budget. But if you plan on living there, again, the number of people that pay their house off in 30 years or 50 years, no 50 years now, but like,
unfortunately, a lot of people don't because they move.
They move, right?
Well, and then there goes the whole idea about like renting and stuff. I don't want to take you away from that.
No, go ahead.
But what came to mind real quick was, this whole rush. I need to own a home. Right? That's the American dream, right? You maybe go to school, maybe you don't. You start a business, you go to school, you graduate, you get a job. Either way, you make progress. You have a family, and I got to buy my home. My first home for my family. Like that's huge, and in the world we live in right now, at this very moment, with the cost of living, the cost of purchasing that first home, the cost of financing, like you got to make sure you understand the concept of like ownership, right? You think you own a home because you signed on the dotted line, which is relatively true, but also can be somewhat flawed because actually you're indebted to the bank for the home. And when you look at the amount of payments you're going to make, and if you're only going to stay there for the next 5 years, the amount of money you're spending, plus the cost of tax, plus the cost of the insurance, plus the cost of
Maintenance.
maintenance and upkeep, and you look at that, okay, well, in a world where maybe real estate doesn't do what it did, which was record growth over, the past 5 or 6 years, if it's stagnant, you lost money compared to renting, right? So I think you just, once again, it really does, in the world we live in right now, takes more thought and more really like focus and intentionality with your money and with your cash flow. I think it does.
So action items. I think those who've stayed with us really understand the fact and the impact that, listen, the life that you want, we've said it before, because this is why our podcast before was called Beyond Tomorrow, because the life that you want in the future goes beyond it goes beyond tomorrow. It starts with today. It starts with decisions that you make today. So I think someone who has been delaying their retirement planning, their retirement savings, I think one of the first things they should do, if they're fortunate enough to have a 401k through their employer and their employer matches, which most 401k plans do, go to your 401k portal right now and increase your contributions to at least the employer match. I mean, you're giving up and leaving free money on the table. If your employer matches at 6% and you're only funding 4, get that thing up to 6. I mean, you're leaving free money on the table.
Yeah, 100%. That's like step one.
That's like step one. That's an immediate win.
I'm gonna take it for someone, and I'm gonna turn that over and say, okay, what if if you're 5 years out from retirement, you're making over 350, 400 plus as a household. You're in a 32% plus federal tax bracket. You're an executive. Well, if you're that individual and you have the option to participate in like a deferred compensation plan or an ESOP or some type of stock option, and you've never done it before, and you're looking out to 2026 thinking, hey, how in the world do I reduce this 6-figure tax liability that I have every single year? Don't wait. Right now's the time to consider those options as a way of reducing tax. I mean, I just, a gentleman that I had a meeting with today, we did the exact same thing. He's retiring at the end of this week. Last year, this time in November, I asked the question, hey, we're going into your last year. You got tons of stock options that are vesting. You have a lot going on, big bonus, big separation. He's an executive member. Do you have a deferred comp? Yeah. I've never looked into it, but they have one. I'm like, oh my gosh, we saved him almost $250,000 in federal liability because of just asking that one question, right? So don't delay. Be proactive. I think those are two good scenarios there. What else?
That's awesome. Let's see. I would say going back to the 401k again. If you're fortunate enough to have a 401k, most of them have this ability to increase your contributions on an annual basis. So take the example I said before. If you're putting in 6%, you can automatically increase it to 7% the following year. The next year, 8%, following year, whatever. You keep going until you get to maybe 15%. But the idea behind that is trying to avoid that lifestyle creep, right? You're just constantly, it's like set it and forget it. You're going to continue to increase your contributions over time and just automatically do it. So I think that's one thing that can easily be done. And then, really maximize employer benefits. Like if you have an HSA, go ahead and do that, right? So thinking about high income earners, right? You look at and you say to yourself, well, let's say you're 50 years old and you're trying to max out your 401k. You say, well, that doesn't really move the needle as far as tax-wise concerned. Yes, it's a little over $30,000, but I need to save, in the example that you just mentioned before, well, if you have an HSA and you have a family, well, that's another $8,500 you can put away.
Yeah.
But what we're looking for, we're just trying to find ways, right? We're just trying to find ways to save money over time, and maximizing your HSA is another option.
Yeah, it's a huge option. Reduces tax liability. So the net cost to you to be able to do it's not much. You, especially once again, if you're getting closer to retirement, it's a great way to pre-fund. Fund the HSA, but don't use it, and pre-fund and self-insure yourself, especially if you're going to go with that like early retirement ahead of Medicare. So you got that Medicare gap, if you will.
I think you made a good point right there before you go into your next point. But yeah, you said fund your HSA, but don't use it.
Right.
Let that thing compound over time.
Absolutely.
If your prescriptions are $100, if your dental cleaning is $100, if you can pay out of pocket for some of these expenses, then you have your HSA just growing. And some people don't even know you can actually invest in your HSA. I think it's just cash. No. If you look, there are mutual funds. There are options inside your HSA that you can invest in. So definitely use that as an option.
Yeah, and then I would say, just I'm just gonna throw something out there pretty broad. Look at 2026 as your first year being like super disciplined. I think we run away from that because it's like, well, I don't want to be controlled, or I want to be able to do what I want to do, or whatever. But where we miss it is that discipline and obedience to a process creates the freedom that you want.
Oh, you sound like my pastor right now.
But it's true.
But it's true.
And for me, like even in some of my like self goals, and that I have for year 2026, I'm like, discipline and obedience to many things, but to a financial process creates the financial freedom and the lifestyle ultimately that you want. So what's crazy is we buy into this that I want to be able to do what I want to do. Well, what we do by committing to that is we commit to a lifestyle of stress, of never getting ahead, of unhealthy habits, and we never actually achieve what we want. And it's like, okay, well, if you can just focus on that, like the future looks great. As an example, if you're close to retirement and you're, 5 years, 7 years out, you still got some debt on the table, and your retirement, your plan is that you can live off of X. Like, build those disciplines in. Okay, maybe you don't get to do all the things that you did this year in 2025. So be it. You want to do it for the rest of your life? Commit to a different style in 2026. Eliminate the liabilities, respect your cash flow, maximize these deferral accounts to minimize the tax liability, to make your money work for you over the government. I mean, like, come on. I do. And so, and if you're younger, for Lord's sake, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, you're trying, like, I get it. It's tough. Okay. It doesn't matter how tough it is. Life can be a grind. You still got to have the disciplines in place. You still have to. Okay. So you say, well, I can't buy a house. Well, yeah, but you shouldn't be going out to eat and ordering food online all the time either. Go get some black beans and stuff from Food Line or the grocery store, and like, let's go. Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, if you do these things, then you will be the person that's like just running away with no stress, financial freedom, and a lifestyle that you ultimately want. And it's not about the number. It's about the freedom of the demand of the corporate world.
Yeah, I think people think discipline is constraining, if that's the right word, but it's not.
It's freeing.
It's freeing. Discipline is freeing. If you really truly think about it, it will free you. It will free you to live the lifestyle, to live the life that you were made to live.
Just got to do it consistent.
You just got to do it
It's
consistently.
like working out. You go to burn boot camp one day, it didn't feel freeing. But that's a great example.
Yeah, I went this
But
morning,
if you
did not feel
do
free.
it week after week after week, you work out week after week, the next thing you know is, you're free. I mean, how can you deny that? You feel better.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's a good one.
It. That was a good one. All right.
We're in the
next
final month of the year. Look, show some generosity out there. Show some love.
It's that time of year.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Love on some family, hang out with some friends, and yet take some moments with your spouse, and even incorporate your older children if you have them in there, to welcome them into how it looks like to prepare a plan for the next year. Yeah. They need those tools too.
Yeah, you're planning with your family, so bring them into the conversation.
That's right.
So we'll see you next week. Take care.